Now, Marxism and Judaism are irreconcilable. Marxism and our constitutional republic are irreconcilable because our constitutional republic is built on what? Judeo-Christian values. Marxism is irreconcilable with our Constitution, and it's irreconcilable with the Torah, and it's irreconcilable with Christianity, and it's irreconcilable with all those things. So now, let's bring this to current day. It's no surprise that the Marxist leader Brazil has claimed that, first of all, Hitler never did anything and doesn't exist, and yet Netanyahu is Hitler. It's no surprise that Ortega, the communist leader in Nicaragua, is making an alliance with Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah in our hemisphere, and is one of the biggest anti-Semites in Central America. It's no surprise that Venezuela and Iran are tight, the same with the terrorist groups there, because these are Marxist regimes. And they find fealty and common interests with the Islamist terrorists and terrorist regimes. It's no surprise that Xi and Communist China has been holding meetings with Hamas and Fatah to try and get them to reconcile so they can focus on destroying Israel, which they believe will also help bring down the United States. It's no surprise. It's no surprise that North Korea works closely with Iran. What do they have in common? What I just told you they have in common. And now you know why it's really no surprise, even though it is loathsome, grotesque, and pure evil, that Bernie Sanders in the United States Senate is the leader of the anti-Israel mouthpieces. But if you knew the history of Bernie Sanders, and you know some of it, because I've told you some of it, you'd understand why he is, and why he is such poison, why he is a cancer that is metastasizing. Bernie Sanders was born a Jew, which makes him ethnically Jewish. He rejects religion. But Bernie Sanders really is a non-Jew. His birth of obviously by accident. And like Marx, he hates Judaism and he hates Israel. He's on every network almost every Sunday, except Fox, attacking Netanyahu, attacking Israel, using the Hamas numbers, talking about the genocide the Jews have committed against Palestinian children and women, non-combatants. This is a blood libel against the Jews. It's been used for thousands of years. Even though the IDF, Netanyahu, that entire government, really is the most compassionate military on the face of the earth. Everybody knows it, but they lie. Bernie Sanders is a Marxist. He's not only a Marxist, he started out as a Trotskyite. He, unfortunately, was also Jewish. Trotsky was the purest of the Marxists, the purest of the Russian revolutionaries. Lenin, turns out he wasn't a big fan of his, but he wasn't a big enemy of his either. But Stalin was clawing his way to power. And when Lenin died, right before he died, he told confidants, you better watch out for Stalin. He's a madman, he's an animal. By the way, so was Lenin. These are all mass murderers. So of course, Stalin tries to take out Trotsky. Trotsky escapes Russia. He's hunted down, and he's murdered. He's murdered in a pretty gruesome way. You know those massive meat hooks you see, which are kind of sickening, where they put beef, big carcasses of beef? That's how they murdered him. Took him and plopped him right on top of one of those massive hooks. They killed him. And of course, Stalin had his mass murdering going on. He didn't trust anybody. He was psychotic. He was paranoid. Top generals he would kill. after they did what they needed to do. He would kill people in the Politburo. He would kill, 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 kill. He just wanted to make sure. He killed Barry in the end, who was the biggest killer of them all. Stalin. Bernie Sanders went to Israel. He served and wanted to work in a kibbutz. A kibbutz is, when you think about it, these little sort of socialist enclaves, not necessarily Marxist, but economically socialist. Families work together, they grow their own food, they do their own things, so forth and so on. Sort of a strange homeschooling atmosphere, if you will. It's not for me, not for most of you. Now, many decades ago, there were a number of kibbutzim, as we call them, that were fairly radical. And so what they were, they aligned themselves with the Labor Party of Israel for the most part, which is a left-wing party, sort of a radical left-wing party, but not a Marxist left-wing party, more socialist than Marxist. But there was one kibbutz in particular, handful of them, but one in particular that rejected that and embraced Trotsky and later Stalin. And in fact, even during the height of the Cold War, supported the Soviet Union against the United States. That's the kibbutz that Bernie Sanders attended. He kept that secret until he decided to run for president and he was outed. He was outed by a man named Ronald Rodash, who himself had been a communist and later became a conservative. Look, I had a dear, dear friend who was a Marxist in college. He became one of the most conservative patriots I've ever known in my life. Rodash followed a similar trajectory. And then it came out, it became public. It became public, but was not publicized. Bernie Sanders chose to serve in a pro-Stalin, pro-Soviet kibbutz in Israel. He wasn't there to learn Hebrew. He wasn't there because he had some feeling towards Israel. He was there because he was first a Trotskyite, then a Stalinist. And even the Labor Party-related kibbutzim, in plural, kibbutzes, wanted nothing to do with that particular kibbutz. But it drew in Bernie Sanders. And they called themselves Israeli Marxists. Now, Marxism and Judaism are irreconcilable. Marxism and our constitutional republic are irreconcilable because our constitutional republic is built on what? Judeo-Christian values. Marxism is irreconcilable with our Constitution, and it's irreconcilable with the Torah, and it's irreconcilable with Christianity, and it's irreconcilable with all those things. There he is in the most radical, pro-Stalin, pro-Soviet kibbutz, which he kept quiet for decades. You know who else was a member of that kibbutz as a young man? Noam Chomsky, who founded Jewish voters, or young Jewish voters for Palestine, that marched with the students for justice in Palestine. They hate Israel. They push this two-state solution because they know that'll be the end of Israel. They target Netanyahu left and right because Netanyahu is a strong leader, a strong statesman. They need to get rid of him. They need one of these frauds and phonies and reprobates, these weak members of Likud, or these weak members of Labor, although the Labor Party's weak right now, these left-wing parties. So why? So Blinken can manipulate them into committing suicide. This isn't conspiracy, I'm just explaining it. And the media keep bringing Bernie Sanders on TV because they like what he has to say. He's Jewish. He's for the people. he represents the progressive element in the Democrat Party. And he's not afraid to hold Israel to account, and Netanyahu.
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.